Hello and thank you for joining us. You're listening to a Wedotalk with David Jaques. Hi, welcome to this week's Wedotalk. My guest today is joining me from Bussum in the Netherlands, and it's my pleasure to introduce Claudia van Zuiden. So Claudia, very good afternoon to you. Welcome to Wedo, and thanks so much for joining me today.
It's so wonderful to be here, David. Thank you for inviting me.
It's my pleasure. And so, by means of introduction, Claudia is the founder and CEO of Solution Ways, which is a solution focused well-being practice in which she teaches her clients life skills, business and personal coaching, and compassionate leadership. And one of the quotes that I like the most is that she says, "I help people thrive rather than survive, both personally and professionally." So, Claudia, I think that's so important to understand where we're at. Are we just in a survival mode, or are we doing really well in life? So you probably see people in all aspects of that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know what we see more and more is that people become more aware that whatever they are thriving for or striving for, rather they realize that the outer happiness is not as what they're really looking for. It's more the inner happiness. And I think the inner happiness, that's when we start to discover that is more the thriving. And when we start looking at the outer happiness, what we very much see in the Western world, we talk about, to me, I think it's more about surviving. Yeah.
Very true. So, Claudia, I'd love to hear a lot more about your business and the clients and what you do, but you are Dutch, you grew up in the Netherlands, and yet you've spent probably half your lifetime living in Scotland. So, how did a Dutch lady move to Scotland and spend so long there and then go back to the Netherlands fairly recently? How did that all happen?
Well, I was born and raised in Amsterdam, and I was very young, entrepreneurial oriented. So I started at 21st age. I started my own business here in the Netherlands, which was exclusive ladies fashion store, and that went really, really well. And I love doing that. But after 5 years doing that, I thought, well, there must be more in life than running a business like this. And I also became a mother. And I already had family living in Scotland, and I used to visit them for short breaks. And I love the nature. I'm a nature lover. I love to go walking and hiking and all that. And I love mountains. But what I also noticed is that the people in Scotland were very friendly. They were very welcoming and very connected. And when I came then back to the Netherlands, I noticed that people were much more self-oriented and not as much living in communities as such, as taking care of each other in the villages and so forth. And I decided that it was maybe a good thing to move to Scotland. And yeah, we just, it was a long story, but we decided to go. And it felt like also a place where I could bring up my children very much in nature and expose them to different values in life rather than just keeping up with the Joneses, so to speak.
That I feel is such a great education to give our kids, is the gift of travel and the ability to live and certainly work if they can and go to school in different places. I'm an immigrant here in the US myself. I came here for 2 years and I've been here half my lifetime. So it's been a long time, and I didn't intend when I came here that I would meet and marry an American and then have kids here. But you never quite know what life has in store for you and what's going to happen.
Absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, that is something that I can really much relate to, and to follow that heart like you did, that is
Yeah,
something I think that a lot of people don't dare to do. So I
yeah,
help them to do that as well.
yeah. And of course, if you enjoy mountains, then you don't have many of them in the Netherlands.
Absolutely not. It's very flat here. It's beautiful. I fell in love with the Netherlands again when I came back, but yeah, it is very different. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about Solution Ways. How did that start? Was that a business that you started when you were living in Scotland, or did that start even before then?
Well, I started the business in Scotland, and it became really a business because, like, when I was in the Netherlands, I was having this wonderful exclusive ladies fashion shop where people would also come by appointment and so forth, and were quite wealthy often, and I ended up more counseling them in a sort of coffee corner that I had in the back with cappuccinos and espressos, and they started to tell their life story more and more. And I realized then that inner happiness was not in the outer world, like in their clothes and whatever. It did make them feel good a little short period, but it was more hedonian lifestyle than an fulfilling lifestyle as such. So I realized there was a lack. There was a lack of support and skills. We were not taught skills. So I started this business in Scotland, indeed, when I realized when I was there that a lot of people would come to me to ask some advice or a little bit of guidance. And then, yeah, one thing led to another. And I decided to start a business as such. Yeah.
Yeah. And the type of thing that you do is something which I feel is relatively new. People looking at life skills, what I call the soft skills that, having grown up in the financial world and I'm a trained accountant. And so if there's an area of accounting that I'm not familiar with, I can go and take a class and I can learn those new technical skills. So you can if you're an engineer or anything else. But I remember how many years ago, my employers would always support me in improving my skills, my technical skills that would help the company and help revenue. But there was very little interest in helping people develop skills, communication skills, how to be a better communicator, how to talk to people, how to be able to then project yourself well. Would you say this is something that's relatively new? Because it seems to me like maybe in the last 20 to 30 years, this has been much more of a concept. And how have you found the reception when you've approached people with your line of business?
Oh, very good question. I mean, I think it is relatively new in the West. And I think we look at the Eastern philosophies in Eastern countries, that is something that is basically learned by birth. What I found, I worked for a period also in Nepal. I trained some of the skills that I do in counseling and with trauma counseling and so forth in Nepal and at the university near Kathmandu. And what I noticed there also is that the people are much more encouraged from a very young age to do some inner reflection. And they are taught certain skills from a very young age already at the school. So they're much more equipped with these soft skills that you mentioned, rather than we are. We are at the West much more focused on making a career, getting a degree, and all that. And when I was in Nepal or also in India, I found that there is much more a mix of the things. People are very eager to learn, and they are also look at their inner development. So when I was 15, I didn't know anything about this, but I started already doing yoga when I was 15. And it really helped me to learn a little bit more about myself. So I did a lot of meditation, and that really helped me to get more self-awareness. So when I also then started to work with businesses, I looked at the fact that we have a lot of skills in assessing ourselves, like self-assessment, but there were very little skills about self-awareness. And when we apply the skills, like you say, self-awareness, this creates a more and a deeper understanding of how we function at the workplace, how we relate with each other. We become much more aware how interconnected we all are all over the world, and also with our teams, that this created much more of a bonding and a much more happier work atmosphere. So this is when, especially leaders, we see, especially in the high range, the leaders are much more doing research and much more training in self-development, because they want to become more self-aware, and they are more self-aware. If we look at the hierarchy as such, the people who are a little bit in the lower management often also have less self-awareness, but the people who are in the higher management, they are much more self-aware, and their skills are much more varied as well. So they were quite open. I see this more and more to learn about these techniques that have been passed on to me as well.
Yeah. And one of the things which I've often seen is that when people are self-aware, sometimes they're more self-aware of the problems and the obstacles. And I've spoken to many people who say, well, this is what I'd really like to do, but it's so difficult to get there. There are so many obstacles in my way. I don't have the right training. And it would seem to me that what you try to do is to connect those dots and join those things together.
Oh yeah, it integrates in so many aspects of the workplace. I mean, I'm now coaching recently a lot of people about time management. And again, that starts with awareness. You know, how focused are you on what you're doing and things like that. You know, we are so distracted because we are bombarded with information all the time that our mind continuously wants to distract itself. But once we start to understand the mind and how it functions, we can actually guide our mind more into the direction that is more beneficial to us. So that also goes to time management, and it goes into communication, problem solving, conflict resolution. All these things have to their root lies often in self-awareness. How do you communicate? You know, I have clients in companies that say, but you know, I'm so passionate and I want my team to do this as well. But the way they go about and how they then bring their ideas forward is often so forceful that it actually people don't want to go along. But when you learn to become self-aware and you know how to invite people to come on board, you know, you're learning different skills about yourself and how you relate. That really opens up doors for others to also come forward and to create connection. You know, make a connection with each other. It's more inviting than just living your passion and wishing that everybody wants to do what you want to do. And yeah, all these different aspects we see in businesses. We also see them in schools, we see them in communities. They're everywhere. It comes all down to communication and knowing our own mind, becoming aware of how we function. And sometimes it's just as easy to take one breath before you react. You know, we have that moment of stimulus and a moment of mindfulness, a mindful moment, which could be a breath, just taking a breath, and then respond rather than react. And that moment in between, there lies a world of opportunities and potential for different things to arise.
Yeah.
And once we become aware of that, can be your lifesaver in decision making, in planning, and all sorts of things. So yeah, they're all connected. All these dots are connected, basically. What I believe and what I've seen.
And that really plays into your philosophy of compassionate leadership, because I believe that leadership is such a critical thing, and there are so many different ways in which one can lead a team, lead a company, and the more involved people are, the more you're likely to have that true leadership that will have a following and people will respect. And for me, whenever I've worked for other people, I know that I'm working for the right person. If I want my boss to succeed, then that is the key thing for me, is that means that I'm working for somebody I want to succeed. And if that person succeeds, then I will be successful myself.
Absolutely. And you will just go that little bit further as well, as you would normally do, wouldn't you?
I will tell you a little anecdote. A gentleman I once worked for at a regional bank here, Silicon Valley Bank, CEO, wonderful man named John Dean. And he's the only person that could come into my office, give me more work, need more of my time, and make me feel good about it. Because I always felt that if John is asking me for help and he trusts me for this, I feel privileged. And that was just such a great feeling. And he's the only person that's ever really been able to do that. But that was a great environment to work in.
That's wonderful. What would you say was his skill then, his main skill that you really admired?
I think definitely compassion, strength, a sense of humor, and the feeling that he related to the person, and that there would always be just such warm communication, and even little anecdotes, you know, little things that would happen. He would never let any little thing go by without just sending you a little thank you email or a voicemail or something, just to say, I appreciate it. And that went a long way, was just letting me know that the things that I did were appreciated. And next time, of course, I'm happy to help you, John. That was just part of it. So
yeah, wonderful. Yeah, and I think that's great skills to have as a leader, and it shows by example that it really was effective.
Do you work mostly with corporations, or do you also work with individuals?
Also individuals. I coach internationally, mostly online now. So quite interesting people in very high positions who make big decisions in the world. And I just coach them, bringing them back to themselves basically. And then
Yes.
when like you explained it so well, it's when you find your authentic self, your genuine self, and you start to lead from that place, then the world opens basically in so many directions that are much more, I would say, valued to people nowadays, especially when you're more self-aware. They really start to appreciate what really matters in life, and then you can work full on. I work with people also who,
Yeah.
work so many hours a week, but they feel fulfilled by doing so. But if I can help them to also work and live from their heart, then that's what I love doing. So it's with teams, with corporate business, and individuals. Yeah.
Great. So, Claudia, obviously, you have to observe confidentiality of your clients, so I wouldn't ask you to divulge any names, but could you give an example of a particular situation where you'd helped either a corporation or a person, something that you really feel good about?
Well, I think that is difficult for me to say, but I can see some decisions that people made that changed their lives for the better. People who were had high places in hospitals, and they just decided to go, for example, work in a hospital that was much more in alignment with their heart, rather than just profit driven, much more looking at purpose driven. And they made some critical decisions in their lives that changed their lives a lot, but they followed their heart, and eventually, it came all back into their lives as they really wanted to live their lives. So there were really courageous decisions they had to make.
Claudia, I know one of the things that you use in your training is the 16 Guidelines for Life Toolkit. I'm not very familiar with that. Could you tell us a little bit about that and how you use it?
Yeah, thank you. I use it in my training, and I use it in my personal life. And it's a toolkit that I said to my children, if something ever happens to me, because they do like to, even though they're now in their 30s or and adults and are very equipped themselves, they still sometimes come for some advice. I would say live by the 16 guidelines for life. And they are based in Buddhism, in Eastern philosophies. So they've been going around for quite a while, and they are based on Western science. So it's a lovely combination in developing our inner qualities, our inner values, and our ethical values, our ethic morals, and how to develop compassion and wisdom. Both are, for me, the two wings of a bird, and they can't go without one another. So they are based on our inner qualities that we all have when we come in this life. We all are compassionate beings. We're all are kind beings. And what we look at these tools with the 16 guidelines help us to develop them even more. And we also use our innate wisdom with that. We use perhaps some role models with that, people who really embody the qualities that we aspire to develop. So there's some inner reflection with that. There's some tools that we use also in businesses, but also with people in prisons. We use them at schools for children. So there's a variety of venues where we can use these tools. And but it takes discipline to apply them, and focus, and the willingness to really develop our own full potential. I believe we are all here to live our full potential, but we're not taught how to do that. So imagine if we could all be the being that we are supposed to be here, and we have the tools how to do that. Nothing fluffy, just really practical tools, simple tools, but not easy to always apply in our lives. They are there, and that's why I use them. And I find them helpful in meetings. They set the tone, for example, especially when we use, for example, a guideline as respect or kindness and patience, all these things. So we look at how would this situation be different if we would apply this guideline? How would the meeting be different? How would the result be different if we would apply these things? So it's very helpful, very practical, and also to see how familiar are we already within ourselves. How is patience developed in my own strategies?
Yeah.
and so forth. So they're very practical and easy to apply. So, and as our neuroscience is showing us now that our brain is like plastic, we can actually change the physiology of our brain.
Yeah.
So the fact, like you hear sometimes people say, "Oh, well, that's just how I am. You know, I cannot change." That's actually not true. We don't get away with that anymore. We actually can change by practicing certain techniques and
Yes.
develop our inner qualities that we all innately already have.
Now,
So,
Claudia, I hear some Western philosophy, some modern day science. I hear some Eastern philosophy, some ancient principles that you obviously have studied this a lot. Is there any one individual or people that have really inspired you?
well, yes, there's a few. One of the big inspirations for me has been His Holiness the Dalai Lama. I think he brought great wisdom in the world to make us understand that we all are human beings who want to be happy, and that anger and violence is not the answer. You know, that there are different ways. Dialogue is the answer. So I've seen that been very helpful in my own life. And I've seen that very helpful in so many situations that we ultimately all want to be happy. That's what he is teaching us, and then he goes way out to go and share this with the world. He connects with everybody, all different cultures, all different traditions, all different religions, and he just realizes that we are all human beings who want to be happy, and that the happiness starts within ourselves. And
Yes.
then what I also like is that his last years of this life, he says that he really wants to focus on the environment. You know, what we can do as humans to take care of the environment for the generations to come. So I think he is a great example for me to live by. I'm very grateful for his wisdom. Yeah.
Absolutely. And once again, a lot of very traditional wisdom, but also applying that in the modern day world and saying we have to take care of our planet.
Absolutely. And what I love about His Holiness also is that he says if science proves that we have been wrong or things are wrong in our way of seeing things, then we must alter how we think. You know, so he says
Yeah.
openness, this willingness to to remain open to new development and so forth. I
Right.
think that is a great example in any situation. Yeah.
Claudia, here we are. It is currently the end of April of 2022. The last couple of years have been challenging for everyone. But my particular question to you, especially as you've done a move within Europe during that time, what has been more challenging? Has it been the COVID pandemic or has it been Brexit?
Well, I must say for me, both. Brexit, I think, was also difficult. I think in some ways because of the practicalities. I think also for businesses, it's been very difficult for people, you know, with the whole tax system again changing and so forth. So there's a lot of insecurity for people already whilst they were going through the COVID pressure and all the things that came with that. And COVID, yeah, was also difficult because for me, especially because I train internationally, so I used to travel a lot. So I had to really become familiar with training online, which I prefer still to do in person. I work with teams. I love working with teams. You know, sometimes the bigger the better. And that all of a sudden became very small. So I found that a challenge for me, yeah, very much so. But it also gave me more focus on to say, well, you know, what do you really want? It also gave me an opportunity to reach out even more internationally because you can't be at one place at the same time. But online, we seem to be multiple places. So, but the Brexit was definitely also a big thing. Yeah.
Many people don't realize this, particularly here in the US. They happened at exactly the same time. I mean, one was the end of January of 2020, and then COVID was happening, and by March everything was being locked down. So there was really the double situation there.
Yeah,
So really
definitely.
difficult. Before we wrap up, just a couple of questions for you. What is your vision for the future of your business? Where do you hope to take that?
Wow. My vision is still to inspire people to live their full potential, to unlock their potential, whether that's in their business and in their personal life. And I really want to speak more about this. I get invited to speak all over the world as well about this. Give people tools to make the best out of your life, to make that connection, not just from your head and what we think we should be telling and what subconsciously we are just running the programming that's been put in us from a very young age, but to learn your own programming and to make that connection with your heart. What gives your life meaning? What is your purpose in life? And to live that and to live by your values, by your ethical values, and to really make that happen in your life. That's my
Yeah.
future
Yeah.
dream, to keep doing this and even take it also not just in the business world, but I also look now in doing things more into being of service. So I'm looking also in ways of going into prisons more, perhaps even working with organizations that do much more on the street already, helping people on the
Yeah.
ground level as well to make their lives better. So I see myself heading more towards that way as I get a little bit older.
That's wonderful. You have a great vision, a great business, and may that succeed many, many years into the future. And I believe you're also involved in another business as well, Conscious World Agents. Is that a similar type of organization?
Yes, that's a similar kind of organization that I run with my partner. So we
Ah,
also give year programs to people. We go into leadership programs into corporate businesses as well as a team. We have the same
good.
dream. Yeah,
Must be a wonderful partnership if you do share those passions and dreams.
absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
Claudia, one final thing. What's the best way of reaching you if somebody would like to contact you and talk to you about your services? How can they get in touch with you?
Well, they can visit my website, solutionways.com. And they can also on consciousworldagents.com. They can find us there. We're on social media. We are on LinkedIn. So we're Instagram. So if people want to find us there, and they can email us, of course, if they have any inquiries at solutionways at gmail.com. They can email me or at info at consciousworldagents.com. So anything they want to ask in ways of how we can help them to move forward and unlock their potential. And even when they're a little stuck, like
Yes.
when you were speaking about, mental health and so forth, people are really struggling. And you also see this a lot with youngsters. We mentor people as well. You don't have to do it on your own. We say you have to do it alone, but not on your own. You'll have to do
Yes.
things. You'll have to make the steps. We can't make them for you, but we can help you to make the next step forward. So wherever that is, personally or in your business, we can certainly do our best to help. Yeah.
And in closing, I'm going to read a little quote from your website, if I may,
Yes,
which is
please.
a wonderful little paragraph that reads, "Everyone deserves to live the life they long for, at home, at work, and always. You can learn the skills to do this and then just do it." So I think that's a very nice summary of what you do. And I think, again, it's all about learning the skills to connect those dots to get there, because we can visualize a pathway for ourselves, but if we don't know how to navigate that pathway, it's a very difficult journey. And so I think on your journey, you've helped many people to achieve their goals in their journey, and that's just a wonderful service that you provide.
Yeah, thank you. But I would like to add always, I don't know how they do it. Because they do it ultimately, So, and I remember
Yeah.
once I listened to one of my teachers, Steve the Chaser, and he also said that. He said, we don't know how they do it because it's so difficult sometimes to make that first step towards your recovery or all these things. And we can really show the path, but
Yeah.
how you really do it, how people really do it, sometimes amazes me, their strength and their courage. So, yeah.
Same here, Claudia. And I was going to say, over the last couple of years that I've been doing these podcasts, I have met some incredible people and many people who've overcome some amazing obstacles. Yeah. So, Claudia, I'd like to really thank you for your time here today, for joining us and for sharing your thoughts. It's been a pleasure. And of course, I wish you every success for the future.
Oh, that's so kind. It was such a delight to be here, David. Thank you. And may I add something to this as well, to finalize it
Of
as
course.
well? When I came back to the Netherlands after living in Scotland, I had also gone through a trauma. And it was very hard to get back again on my feet here again. But I also had a big faith in myself that sometimes things are put on our path that are so difficult. We think they're unsurpassable. But what I noticed that I had to go back in my own heart and really believe in myself again that whatever is given to me, I will be strong enough to face them and to reach out to others, to reach out. And I did reach out, and I had some wonderful people around me who were there to support me to take that next step. So whatever happens in our lives, we are always strong enough to get through them and keep that faith that the universe will bring something on your path that will make you. It will not break you, it will make you. And sometimes we
Yes.
just need that extra bit because we think we're there and then something happens and there's something else we need to learn. So I'm sure you as well, David, you will have learned something from your experience. People always come out of it
Yes.
stronger somehow. So, yeah,
Yes.
I would really like
Yeah.
to add that as well.
Absolutely. Thank you for those thoughts. And I truly do believe that sometimes the biggest obstacles in our lives, as horrific and devastating as they can be at the times, can teach us things, and we can learn from them, and we can become stronger. And one of my great philosophies is that you have to believe in yourself. So I truly believe that. And also surround yourself with people that believe in you. And if other people believe in you and you believe in yourself, there's so much power in you and so much that you can do.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Once again, thank you, Claudia, for your time today. And thanks everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed listening to this. If you'd like to leave your comments below, please do subscribe to our channel. And until next time, be well and be happy. We upload a Wedotalk every week. So if you enjoyed this one, please subscribe and leave your comments below.